And I'm now really excited to welcome three founders, entrepreneurs, and leaders in the world of mental health and well-being. Pip Jameson, founder of The Dots, James Routledge, founder of Sanctus, and Sandra De Monte, founder of Mindberry. Sandra's in the building first. Got on stage. Hey, Sandra. Hey, James. And Pip, look at that.
Hello, everyone.
That is an X Factor level of slick production.
Yes. Already anxiety level goes high.
Yeah, it's okay. There's only 134 people here hanging off your every word. More coming by the minute. It's like real-time data, isn't it? Feedback. If the number goes down, you're like, oh God, quick. Change it. Oh, well, it's lovely to see you all. Welcome back to the Virgin StartUp stage. I know you've all been connected with this community and played a role already. So welcome back in a slightly different format. And as you know, tonight we wanted to dive into this topic of mental well-being, which has become a buzzword over the last few years, but in a positive way for many people, because it's about actually having more open and honest conversations about the journey of being a founder of a business and a small enterprise. And the three of you have all helped a lot of people on this journey. So we're really lucky to have you here tonight. And what I thought would be a good way to start is to do some personal storytelling, as this is very much part of your leadership and what you do. And so if we could go around one at a time, spend a few minutes each, maybe just sharing your own journey, both in terms of entrepreneurship, but also your own mental well-being journey and what you've learned from it so far. I appreciate this could be an hour each. So we'll just take us into the beginning of the journey, or pick it up wherever you want. And maybe Pip, we can come to you first. And imagine that the 150 people that are on this have never met you before. So give them your story.
Oh, bless you for reminding me that I had though. So yeah, my name is Pip Jameson. I'm the founder of The Dots. I guess firstly, for those that don't know The Dots, Forbes called us the next LinkedIn, and I guess that's my vision. My journey. Well, I'm dyslexic, and I guess I found that very challenging when I was younger, from definitely a mental health perspective. But I'm also a non-tech founder. So I'm like that crazy person who didn't study computer science, just really hated LinkedIn and realized it was built for a very corporate, very archaic way of work that didn't value things like people's mental health. I somewhat naively just went, all right, I'm going to build a completely different solution that's fit for the modern generation. So, we are a professional network, but big differences are, for example, our algorithm is based on kindness. So the more kind and supportive the community is, the higher they come up in search results. Hang on.
I've got to interrupt here. How do you build an algorithm based on kind? I know that's your Coca-Cola. You can't give that away. Is it technically, for a non-techie, is that just on keywords that people use and it then triggers a bigger response? Okay.
Yeah, so basically the way it works is the community, we have like forum areas where people help and support each other. Mm-hmm. So if people ask useful questions that the other community respond to, engage with and like, they'll come higher in search results. And if people answer questions and they like and engage with those questions, you come higher in search results. So the kinder you are to other people, the higher you come up in search, which I guess is like everything I hate about social media these days is how negative and horrible it is. Like, I'd be the worst person to run Twitter. I would have deleted Trump years ago. So everything I'm trying to create is the antithesis to that, where it feels inclusive and kind, and you can ask really, I mean, some of the questions that people ask in the community break my heart. Like, people are going through mass redundancies at the moment. They're really struggling with mental health, but we've created a safe environment where anyone can ask anything, and suddenly you've got an army of people that are kind of supporting you on that journey. So, but yeah, I don't want
such an obvious solution to so many of the problems we have online. What you've built, it's really simple and yet powerful.
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, like, as entrepreneurs know, a lot of time it is about simple solutions. It's just about kind of getting them done, I guess. And don't get me wrong, this hasn't been an easy journey. It's not like I came up with a simple solution to go up against LinkedIn, and it's been a massive roller coaster nightmare as well. And we'll talk about that more early. But or later. That's my dyslexia, earlier, later.
Well, you share that with Richard Branson, and you're both doing okay in life. And just bring us up to date, Pip. So what does the dots and your entrepreneurial life look like this year?
Yeah, so it's definitely kind of good and bad. So, I mean, our community has swelled beyond belief, obviously, because we were kind of built for the future of work, and the future just arrived a little faster than we expected. So, like, we've just about hit, 1 million members on the site. The challenges have been, we've had to move the whole team remote. We've had to support a lot of our community members who are really struggling. So, but in a way, that's kind of a privilege as well, because it's nice to be, even though things are challenging, it's nice to be able to give back. So, and, to be completely candid, my business model is based on recruitment, and no one's bloody recruiting at the moment. But thank God I have very, very, very supportive shareholders.
And just on that roller coaster journey yourself, I mean, you're experienced now with it, but when for example your recruitment revenue stream falls off a cliff, I remember talking to Dom Jackman at Escape the City earlier this year, and he's had 10 years of just really solid revenue for his recruitment business, and in March it went down by 95%. I mean, what happened in your version of that situation? How did you deal with it?
Yeah, I mean, the plus side is 2/3 of our clients are long-term clients, so they're signed up for like 1 to 3 years. So it wasn't as like horrific as it could have been. But then it was just about thinking about where are the opportunities. So obviously we saw a massive rise in tech. So we leaned heavily into tech roles, and we already have relationships with like Google and LinkedIn. God, that's definitely a Freudian slip. LinkedIn and Apple who are using the site. So it's kind of leaning into those clients. But also we're seeing a massive rise in remote roles. And so just started to lean into businesses where they were still hiring, but hiring remotely. But yeah, my life is on full tech over the last 6 months.
It sounds to me that you're also an excellent reframer of difficult situations, which is a key skill in this game. Thanks for the intro, Pip. Sandra, coming to you next. What's your story?
Hi, I'm Sandra Dimonte, the founder of Mindberry. Mindberry is an online platform connecting mental well-being professionals to their clients. So, and here we are. I am a founder, and I'm also a mental well-being professional. And I think I come next to that, that I can open my toolbox to you all and can share it with you about the tips and tricks and how you can look after yourself in a better way. But what I would like to share with you first is a little bit my own story going through that, because therefore we are here. And what can I say? It was not an easy one, because when I started out 2016, all what I wanted to do, I wanted to support people. I wanted to help people. I wanted to have an impact. And I thought it's easy. Yeah, I have my studies. I have the idea. I had fantastic co-founders, and let's start out. But I can tell you now, almost 4 years later, a completely different story. So if I would anticipate it in the beginning, I would never have thought about that. But then, in retrospect, when I look back, the struggle times, they were the most, in the end of the day, the most growing parts. Yeah, where I learned extremely. I learned that we cannot go around it. Yeah, we have to go through it.
The obstacle is the way, as Ryan Holiday says. So, Ted, would you be happy to share a couple of those big challenges that you faced and how you drove through them?
Yes, sure. I think it was because mental well-being, of course, I knew not everything, of course not, because even then here you have to always learn, but it is about the business. It's the business side. It's about, pitching to investors. I dreaded public speaking. I love to talk about mental well-being, and like here now is my passion. One-to-one sessions, workshops with 50, 60 people, not a problem at all. But when it comes to pitching to 100 investors and stick to the plan, it was a nightmare for me, I have to be honest. But then, of course, you have to feel the fear and do it anyway, and go out there and find some mentors, find some founders. Virgin StartUp, fantastic support. And I learned my way, not around it, I learned it through it. And then of course on top of it is you have to watch your own mental well-being, that you don't hit the wall. I had last year a lot of losses. Happiness and sadness was knitted together. I got married, but then my mother died, my father-in-law died, and my best friend, and all in 1 year. So by the end of the year, I pulled the plug. So I had some 2 months of a break, not with Mindberry, but not giving counseling sessions and coaching sessions with others, because I went through my own bereavement and grieving. And I checked in with my former tutor, and I had some counseling sessions for 2 months. And I wouldn't say I was back on track, because with these things, it needs time to adjust. And I think it's very, very important that we talk about mental well-being with founders, because don't be shy to check in with someone who can help you to talk about it. James with Sanctus, fantastic company. Mindberry as well. So it's all about, or even talking to founders. I think that is fantastic. Not only reading about books with big shots. Go to events like this and find some friends, some fantastic network, and be human and share your vulnerability.
Thank you, Sandra. That's a wonderful introduction, and we're going to grab lots more wisdom from you over the coming hour. James, great to see you. Welcome to Virgin Startup. I saw your LinkedIn post last week about your kind of 50-word summary of the craziness of 2020. But maybe you can take us back a little bit before and tell us a bit more about your own journey.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And hi, everyone. I kind of fell into startups and entrepreneurship, to be honest. I never grew up wanting to be a businessman. You know, a lot of people dream of sort of, growing up and being Gordon Gekko, and I never did. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I went to university in Sheffield and met my friend and then co-founder George, who was much more entrepreneurial, and he kind of really inspired me, to be honest. Ended up starting a business out of university, which was my first business. And to be honest, started that business out of kind of out of boredom, to be honest with you, out of lack of a better idea. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life.
What was it?
It was a social network for live sport. I laugh because it's, you know, as a student, I had no problems. So I was searching to start a business out of one of my only interests, which was watching football, which is very sort of cliche, and really jumped into that business because I wanted to start a business. You know, I wasn't following any passion or purpose. It was out of wanting something to do, and kind of out of ego, really, to be honest with you, wanting to kind of say that I was a startup founder and get to call myself a CEO. Ended up going down the rabbit hole with that business. I mean, we raised 600K, we grew a team, and then sort of unceremoniously decided to shut down the business. And I really struggled with my mental health after that for the first time ever. Because I put so much of myself into it. It's all I had in my life. You know, I dropped out of university. It was just all I did. I had no relationship, nothing. You know, I was completely closed off to that side of my life, put it all into my business. So when it went, I went with it, to be honest. And I suppose, ironically, I then kind of did that again, but this time with a business that was really solving a problem, because I was solving my own problem, which was my mental health. I was struggling with my mental health. I didn't know where to turn. So I founded Sanctus to kind of create that space for myself and for many others. And Sanctus has been much more successful. Yet, you know, even though I've started a mental health business, I've kind of found myself falling back into the same patterns of over-identifying with the business. So when Sanctus is good, I'm good. When Sanctus is bad, I'm bad. And that's been a pretty, especially in the last 12 months, that's been a pretty dark hole, actually. Yes, I still feel very in it. Like, you know, I still feel like I'm sort of living and breathing it with the kind of not irony, but the fact that now that the mission I'm so attached to it is a mental health mission. You know, it's to inspire people to work on their mental health like we do our physical health, and that's what we do. We partner with businesses to create support for employees. But as a founder, I'm still on the precipice. You know, I'm still falling into old patterns of putting too much of myself into my work. And much more that we can come on to. So,
well, thanks for being so open straight away, James. And I'd love to ask you so much about the Sanctus journey, because I think it's fascinating. I remember when it burst onto the scene, and you were blogging everything, you were sharing everything, and I was just like, "This is fantastic!" It feels like a completely fresh approach, and I've seen how much positive impact you've had as an organization. And you're leading nicely to the kind of the first point that I want to ask you all about, which is really, is it possible to can you have too much emotional investment and personal identity tied up with your business, your brand, your project? And if we do put too much into it, is there a way of, can we pull back from it and still have success? What have you all experienced or seen in that space?
Yes and yes for me. Like, you can 100% be too attached. I mean, I've spent the last 5 years being too attached to Sanctus, even though that's exactly what the business is not about. So, you know, I'm a bit of a walking, talking irony. I'm its own product. Like, I'm its biggest customer. So yeah, I think the knife edge is that in the early stages of starting something new, I think that attachment and that deep involvement is extremely important, because it gives the business life. It really helps to get a business off the ground, because you're willing this thing that into existence that's got more chance of dying than it's got of living. So you've got to give it so much founding energy, which requires so much of your energy. Yeah, when a business gets to a certain stage, I think it actually becomes quite unhealthy, both for the founder and for the business, for the business to be too attached to the founder. I'm never going to give birth, but I think it's very like motherhood from what I hear. And I think there's lots.
You're a brave man for bringing that comparison into the mix, but
I think there's loads of similarities in because you are, as a founder, you're creating life. You really are. I'm not saying one's harder or one's better or worse. There's just a lot of similarities there, and I think yes, you do need to put a lot of yourself into it at the start, but also I think it can be very dangerous, essentially, to put too much of yourself. And I think actually it's good for you and for the business to create more separation as time goes on.
Sandra, you're nodding away.
Yeah, I so can echo that, and James, thank you so much for your transparency, because even though I'm a mental well-being professional, so to say, I can so agree and really, I only can say it is so dangerous. In the beginning, you need that passion because it's a driving force. But then it's what you also said. It's quite to find the balance that you do not define yourself only with your business, and that is quite tricky. And I think it is important that, because it can be a lonely place, as a founder, no doubt. It can be a lonely place because you have to be strong for your team, you have to be strong for your shareholders, you have to be strong for everyone. And then at the end of the day, you are a human being. And I think it's, I'm very touched by what you said, James, and I really can fully rely on that as well. And it's the same. It's here the same, completely. Yeah.
And Pip, is Pip Jameson and the dots one and the same thing? Or like, have you managed to separate your identities and as a result?
No, I haven't managed to separate. I mean, to be complete, I mean, you have all these aspirations to separate, and you just, it's just, but as, both Sandra and James said, in those early days, you can't, you have to breathe life into this. And James, I love the analogy of children, but I can't say I don't have children, so I'm not sure if it's completely correct. But I do feel like that. I feel like as it's got older, I have been able to pull back more. So, you know, it's not as like mental, and, you know, things that have kept me sane is, for example, on Sundays I have airplane mode, so everything goes on airplane mode. I have a complete digital detox on Sunday, and if something's going wrong with the platform, everyone knows to like contact my husband.
You just see him stressing out in the corner.
Stressing out. But I think I think it was Andreessen Horowitz in one of his books kind of said, like, think about the worst thing that could happen, and actually that helped me a lot, where I was like, okay, that fear of failure really was, you know, stifling me. Especially, this is actually my first startup. I'm sorry, my second startup. My first startup, it was really, really problematic. And I think it was like, once you sort of go, well, what happens if you do fail? And the reality is like, my husband's still going to love me, my family's still going to love me, and my friends are just going to be really proud I gave it a shot. And I think once I started getting over that, okay, oh my God, I might actually, if it fails, I might actually go on holiday. That would be fun. So I think once I shifted my kind of brain and had my Sundays of complete decompression, then it was better. But I found it impossible to separate completely. But we're at, our last round was 4 million. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to separate until Series B or C, to be honest. I have to manage my mental health.
Yeah, and I think that perspective thing is super important. I had a conversation with one of the early funded Virgin startup companies the other day. So this is Rada Vyas, who set up something called the Flash Pack 5 years ago. And for the last decade, they've been one of the most exciting travel brands. This is kind of, you know, group travel for people in their 30s who are single. And they've built this amazing brand, amazing business. They hired 200 people last year, and they went into administration last month. And it's because, you know, the revenue stream stopped in March, and they were hoping to get it going again in the autumn. They can't furlough forever. And I had a chat with her, and I was like, geez, Rada, because they'd worked so hard for 10 years, an amazing couple leading the business, and I said, how are you doing? And she said, well, it's been tough, especially with our employees and obviously our customers, but we've had a great 10 years. We've built something amazing together, and they've lost the financial bonus that hopefully comes with scaling, but they've got each other. And I think that was really interesting. They're a couple in life as well as work. And so I guess my next question was going to be around, how can you foresee the burnout? How can you foresee this like meltdown that we hear about so often, that you've all experienced in some ways? So what are the warning signs, and how can we basically prepare ourselves for them, also that we don't fall into that? Sandra, what are your tips for this?
I think it is, of course, in the beginning, you have a lot of energy and you don't have so many setbacks. Yeah, once you go through, and of course, it comes with it. And I think it is also where you build up your resilience. But then moving forward, I think it is working with founders and also with business owners. And then also from my own story, I think it is when sleep, for example, when you realize everything is out of shape, out of sync, your sleeping pattern changes, all your pattern changes, that you all of a sudden have an incredible sarcasm, where you almost really, I would not say black humor is fantastic, but when you have a sarcasm about it around what you do, and all of a sudden also feel also very isolated because you don't have time to meet your friends anymore, and you just feel like you are like a hamster in the wheel. I think there are the signs and where you should really think about the oxygen mask, yeah, because on the plane, you only can help yourself, and you have to pull the plug. And you yourself, you can say, okay, I think it's now time. Either I check in, talk to a counselor, a coach, or to a mentor, or I just really find my balance back. But it is very hard. It is very hard. It is also good when you have a team to talk to, of course, and you trust. But I think for me, I think it's always a big alarm sign when you start changing rituals, patterns in your lifestyle physically as well. When your diet changes completely and the sleeping pattern and everything, because that is an alarm sign, because that is then something when your physical health is out of sync, the mental health will follow definitely, because that needs to be in sync.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And James, for you, are there signs now that you're aware of, that you can see that are triggers that you respond to stop sliding faster?
Yeah, there are. However, I would, I'd have to be honest and say it's taken me years to build up the knowledge of myself to know what they are and to be able to catch them. It's a real skill to be able to do that. And it takes a lot of self-development, a lot of inner work to understand and know those. And I'd venture that a lot of us haven't done that work yet, to be honest. I still think it's rare to kind of go there. And for me, there's some really, I think it's going to be different for everyone. There's some really simple ones, like for example, like my WhatsApp, right? If my WhatsApp's got like 30 unread, unresponded to messages, I know something's going down, because I'm not messaging my friends, I'm not messaging my mum or my dad. If I've not called my mum and dad for a while, if my email inbox is all over the place, obvious things like if I'm waking up in the middle of the night with my heart pounding, probably something going on. If I'm waking up at 7 a.m. on a Saturday, buzzed, which often happens, then there's potentially something on my mind as well. But it takes a lot of self-knowledge to know the difference between what's genuine passion and then, because some days I wake up on a Sunday and I can't wait to get my laptop out and get into it, and all but to know and to be able to listen to yourself and be like, oh, is that me overworking? Because actually I'm scared of what my life is if I've got no business. So it takes a lot to know that. So yeah, I think I've learned it over time, but it takes time to learn that, and it comes with age as well, right? Like, I'm only 29, so like I just think it takes a bit of time to start businesses young these days. I mean, when I started my first business, I was like 22. Literally, I only just learned how to put a wash on. I just loved it. So like I could barely look after myself. So these as well. So yeah, echo what Sandra said about just having people around you is just really important. Who are just sort of unequivocally there for you as a person, I think is just extremely important.
And for all of those things that make us start, like, our sleep patterns go out, we start to feel overwhelmed by too many messages coming at us. What's behind this? And I'm curious to know for each of you, when you do feel these stress levels go up, or you see it in other people because you're helping them, and they're coming to you with their mental health problems. Is it like not being able to control the situation? Because is it uncertainty? What is the thing that often triggers? And then if we can recognize that, does that then help us figure out how to deal with the stress better? Pip, do you understand when you're getting stressed now what's behind it, and therefore can rationalize and deal with it better?
Yeah, I mean, I get massive anxiety on the email thing.
Okay.
But like classic me, I just always try and come up with solutions. So I actually just boomerang all non-essential emails to another time. So I just use a little tool so that the only emails in my inbox are emails that I have to deal with, and that's helped me massively. WhatsApp I've given up on years ago. Everyone, if they love me, they'll call me. There's this kind of, I just basically went, oh my gosh, I don't even want to look at Facebook. I haven't logged in for years, and the amount of messages. But I just got to that point going, do you know what? People who love me most and I want to actually genuinely spend time with, they're going to call me, or maybe call my husband. So I've sort of just cleared all the clutter in my life. And I think the most important thing for me is I know when I'm burning out, where if I get sick, because I very rarely get sick. So if I start getting a cold, I know I'm burning out. Wake up in the middle of the night, yeah, that's definitely a sign. But for me, it's been sleep has been my joy. It's like that if I have a 12-hour night, I can just clear everything, or not everything, but a lot of it. But I think it's also been my team. So I've been really careful to make sure our core value at the Dots is positivity, and it's not people that don't challenge me. It's about people that focus on solutions, not problems. And by having a really positive team, it really helps me on the really bad days, because I'm not having to deal with them being political or negative or nasty. They're all like, "We've got this." And so I can be really open as a leader and say, "Listen, I'm on my period. I feel like shit. Can you just help me?" And they do, and they're really kind, and it's genuine. It's a place of and that's probably been the most important thing I've done, is made the day-to-day with my team enjoyable and positive. That helps a lot with when I'm having bad days.
Well, that's great. Thank you for sharing that, Pip. I want us to put ourselves in the shoes, and I know you, Sandra and James, you do this for a living. Put ourselves in the shoes of the people who are watching and with us tonight, who are considering starting something. What things can they put in place now, either in terms of what they could learn or tactics, that might prepare them for the fact that there's going to be severe ups and downs, that there's going to be failure, that there's going to be, what are the things they could do, Sandra, that could like strengthen them before they start?
I think is, to know or to see failure as it can be a teacher. It can be a teacher, and it doesn't have to be the enemy or the undertaker. And, but of course it's, because we define ourselves and also with success. But I think the success and mistakes or errors or failure, it is a part of life. And I think important is how we come out of it. And like I said, I dreaded public speaking, and I can tell you, and I'm sure Virgin StartUp, John and Jonathan, they can tell you stories about it. It was dreadful. And I thought really, oh my God, how well I always can do that, talking to investors and everything. And I had to go through it. I had to accept my mistakes. I had to accept my failure. And I think that is the best tip maybe in the beginning, of really find the balance of not, of course, feel the passion and go forward with it. But don't define yourself with it. And if there are setbacks, it is all right, because you can learn from it. And if you check all the big stories, Amazon and LinkedIn, the founder, and so many great people, they had really also failure aside or business setbacks, but they learned from it. So I think that would be my advice, to see it as a teacher, not only as an enemy. It's always easier than said, but it would help.
That public speaking fear is a classic one, Sandra, and it reminds me of a really great community called, I don't know if you come across them, called Fuck Up Nights. And it was like the opposite of TED, where you could just go on stage and talk about your fuck ups, and James is nodding away going, yeah, I was invited to that. And no, so there's things like this where I think I think some of us struggle with this word failure. I know it's semantics, but they are important. And like the identity of failure is something that I know, whether it's just British culture or something, like people are like, well, how do I embrace failure? Like I've been taught all my life that, keep going, never give up, don't fail. And yet here we are. It's just the Americanization of like embracing failure and celebrating it. And I think that some people are uncomfortable with that. What do you see with your Sanctus work, James, on that front?
Sorry, I couldn't stop thinking about when you asked that question about putting ourselves in the shoes of people in the audience.
Yes.
I'm not avoiding that question, by the way. I was just putting myself there and just thinking, God, like how many times have I, been to events or in person, and I thought, fucking hell, like, oh, sorry, I don't know if I swear, but I thought, well, I have now, so what are we going to do? I thought, God, I'm going to be that guy again. Like, because there's so much, and am I that guy now? Because like, there's so many times I'd go to events, I'd go on LinkedIn, or I'd be in the dark of night on like some competitors, like founders Instagram page, and I'm like checking them out and what they're up to at the weekend, and like comparing myself to other founders, other businesses, and it's just so unhealthy. And I just had this like horror moment of hoping that I'm not, or we're not being. There's not people in the audience comparing their business or whatever to us. So sorry, I could not say that. But Yeah, I mean, I was deeply afraid of failure. I actually knew, and this is God's truth, God's honest truth. I knew on week one of joining the accelerator for our first business that our business wasn't right. I knew it, because I'll never forget, like, this great investor came in to do a talk, and he was like, your business has to be solving a problem, and you have to be deeply passionate about that problem you're solving. And I literally remember thinking on week one, I'm not. So I knew from like week one that business was destined to fail. Yeah, I spent 3.5 years avoiding that because I was so scared of what that would mean. Because the thought of going back to uni or telling my mates or my parents or people, whoever they are, these voices I'd made up in my head that I failed, I just couldn't do. So I was so afraid of it for a long, long time. And I lived in fear. I was driven by fear, if anything. Yeah, and it just meant in the end that I just pushed so much of myself away. And it's deeply, deeply unsatisfying and just bad for my mental health, right? I just turned into a completely different version of myself, which caused me a lot of pain and suffering in the end. So I was really, really afraid of failure. And the shame of it, I think, to be honest. So
and is that I think that is so common for so many people, even though the majority of us won't admit it. So thank you for doing it for us. What about now, James? Are you in with that learning and that maturity?
Yeah.
Are you in a different place? So if Sanctus doesn't work out for whatever reason, and from where I'm sitting, it looks like it should do the opposite of not working out, because it's so important and you're doing such a good job with it. But if it didn't work out, how does that make you feel now? I mean, obviously, apart from being disappointed, is there a strong fear attached to that failure, or is it shifted?
It's really current for me, actually, because I've a couple of weeks ago made the decision to step down as the CEO and hire a new CEO for Sanctus. So I've gone through a real process of letting go, and I've had to let myself go, literally, and I've had to sit with this feeling of okay, I could leave if I wanted to. And that's really important. And it sounds crazy to say because I'm standing here wearing a Sanctus t-shirt and loving it. But, to feel able to say I could leave if I wanted to, and I'd still be enough. I think Pip said it earlier, and that is just that's been a huge moment for me, because the truth is, a couple of years ago, I couldn't have said that. I just could not have said that. I would not have felt in my life. So without my business in my life, and and it doesn't mean I think any less of Sanctus, but it's not part of. It's a business. It's a business I started. It is separate from me, and that's to say. And when I view it like that, I get a bit more comfortable with failure because I'm not so attached to it. Everyone here possibly, or people listening, will be thinking about starting businesses. It's it's not you. You're going to put a lot of yourself into it because you're going to create it. But if it doesn't work out, it's a business you started that didn't work out. It's not you're a failure. And that's a really fine distinction and a really subtle one, but an extremely important one.
I think, there's so much there. And I think building on that, and I'm interested in what it's like for you, Pip, with the responsibility you have building this very successful community, is that when you've got people, if you let's say we deal with our own egos and the fear of failures and all that, at least when we really have to,
right.
But then you've got the reality of we've built something that works here that people are passionate about as well. It's really important to them, but also we're helping them solve real problems and make a real difference in their lives, whether they're customers or much more. So for me, I find that's the challenge. Is okay, I can see myself out of this. I can walk away if it doesn't work out. But hang on a second, we've got something here that's really matters, and whether it's the employing other people or the impact you're having. Is that something you find challenging, or how do you deal with that level of responsibility as a successful business person?
It's kind of a blessing and a curse in a very strange way. I mean, with my community now, we've got this whole group of people that kind of depend on us, and even more so now because they're using us to find new jobs or pivot their career or start their businesses. And also, we've always had a massive social purpose behind the Dots, which is, you know, positive algorithms, diversity. So I love men, by the way, but 68% of our community are female, 31% BAME, 16% LGBT. So everything I've tried to do is democratize opportunities. And so I feel like if I let them down, or if I fail, I'm letting them down. So that is a massive stress. But also on the flip side, I think there's this Japanese philosophy, and I always mispronounce it, but I think it's Itiagi or Ikigai, which says the true career happiness is where you combine what you love with what you're good at, with what you get paid for, but most importantly, what the world needs.
Yeah.
And so
the sweetest spot of all. For sure, like, it's just over there. It's just over there.
And weirdly, that gives me positive energy to help me push through. So yes, I have this massive like responsibility to the community I've built, because I built this thing and it's working for them, and I can't let them down. But at the same time, that gives me lots of energy and positivity, and you know, the messages we get just bring like the whole team up all the time. So yeah, it's definitely a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. We've got about 10 more minutes before we go into sessions, and there's quite a few more things I want us to go through. I want to talk about the structure of business. And it's evolving quite a lot in an exciting way right now. So we're seeing the kind of purposeful business, B Corp movement, the sort of the success of the mainstreaming of social enterprise. And that's great. But there's still the fundraising, the shareholders, that kind of classic capitalist model, which often drives a lot of the stress for founders. Do we need to change how we structure business? And if so, or what structures do you think we can use to our advantage to help the well-being of ourselves and our fellow team members, so that we're not signing up to something or putting something in place which down the line is going to come back and create a big stress point for us? Because, so, you know, whether it's equity of founders and the complexity of that, or like shareholder pressure or boards, or, you know, what have you done that's helped you like find a way through this maze? And what would you advise others? Sandra?
Yeah, I always thought if I would be a few years ago at the stage where I am now, I would be happy everything is perfect. But now I'm in this stage, and now, you know, other problems grow and come along. So I think it is a never-ending story. And I think when it comes to business, I know my limits as well, and we are growing now. Unfortunately, I know it sounds weird because it's business, mental well-being and mental health for us with B2B. But of course, we are at COVID times and everything is virtually, so we are so overloaded with work at the moment. So we are hiring as well, and I have to. I know my limits as a business person. Yeah, I'm a mental well-being professional. Of course, I made it so far, so I must have done something right, and I like it in a way. But there's this fantastic saying: you have to break an egg if you want to have an omelette. Yeah, so I have to. And but what I gained, it would be great if maybe some serial entrepreneurs who really are out there, big shots, open up and with mentorships and more communities like Virgin StartUp, that you can share stories, that you can support each other. I think that would help absolutely. But I think it is, from my points, from what I've heard from other founders, I think it will never end in a way. It will never, because there is always the next challenge, and then then there's the next and the next. I think that the art is how to get through it.
Yeah. Just never stop learning. Pip, what about business structures? Is there things you would have done differently? You advise people how to do differently, or make the most of now?
I think, firstly, I think the most important thing is there is this perception that we all have to raise capital. You know, you don't, right? It's, you know, raising money is literally like going into a marriage, but without the benefit of makeup sex. You know, you're stuck with them. This is no longer your business. There, you know, you have a boss, right? And we become entrepreneurs sometimes because we don't want a boss, but you have a boss. And actually, that's another kind of not truth, because your customers and your communities are your bosses too. But so I think firstly, only raise if you have to. And I think what I've found really important is to put people around me that do the things that drain my energy. So I have an incredible COO who absolutely loves things like shareholder comms and doing board packs and negotiations and legal and finance and all the things I hate. Like, I love the product. I love working with the community and I love working on the product. An email from one of my shareholders literally brings me out in hives. I hate it. He loves it. It's like this massive game for him. So I've just put around me people who love the things that I hate doing. And that's been the way to maximize my energy and happiness, but also the team around me, because it's what they love doing as well. Like, I'm a starter, not a finisher. Like, I'm always full of ideas, but I've got an incredible product manager who sees things through. So like, that's been my, I guess, trick to it all. It's just surround yourself with brilliant people who just love the stuff you hate.
Oh, that's fantastic. And James, what about you?
I mean, I think the worst thing about business is business. Like, I love starting businesses and like creating things, and then like all the shit that comes with business is just absolutely crap and just like so sucking of energy, and it comes with all this like glamour and like status, and people think that like raising money's cool. I'm like, it's not. Like, shareholder agreements and such crap. It's so boring. It's just rubbish. So like, yeah, the worst thing about business is business in my, like, the art of actually starting a business is creating a product, a community, a brand. Like, it's the real love of it. It's the real craft. So yeah, the whole game and the whole model, as you rightly touched on, is just the worst. And unfortunately, it's created at times what can be like a pretty toxic startup culture, where people are just out for themselves, you know, like the politics, the sort of like sucking up to people. Like, it's just grim. And it's unfortunate, I think, like, that so much cash has come into it, and there's just this ruthless capitalism behind it, that it's kind of dirtied something really, really lovely in some respects. That's a bit of a bleak outlook. It's not always like that, but I think also, like, it doesn't have to be that way. Like, the thing that I learned, the more I do this, is like, you can just do what you want when you start. But like, literally, like, people are like, there's all these rules and things you can't do. You can sell shares, buy them back, delete them, you know, raise money, don't raise money. Like, you can build a business in like 3 billion different ways. Yeah, there's just this one like pinnacle of success, which like 2 people in the world have done. It's just rubbish. So yeah, I think you can like kind of do what you want starting a business, and it can be so organic. But unfortunately, we're trapped in this like model of entrepreneurship that's actually been painted by people who aren't even entrepreneurs. It's just it's so bizarre.
Yeah. And that glorification of entrepreneurship is something that leads to the poor mental well-being. There's a great I wouldn't say it's a great series, but it's quite an entertaining satire on Silicon Valley on Amazon Prime at the moment called Silicon Valley. And it's about a fake tech startup that goes out and raises money. And it's just chaos the whole way through. They're trying to build the next Google. And it's just a reminder of how flawed so much of that culture is. And it's worked out for a few, but not for the many. And there are so many paths. And this community is full of people who've taken those different paths. I love following what's called the no-code tech community, which are people basically using all the tools online. They're not, they're not techies like you weren't, Pip, and I'm not, but they are out there going, okay, here's something interesting I could use to test this and build that. And we're having lots of success. And there's another great community called Indie Hackers, which are also bootstrappers or like self-starters, not going out and raising money, not going on big accelerator programs, and are finding a way with a little loan from Virgin StartUp along the way. So that we're rounding up our conversation here, and we've just scratched the surface, but it's been so valuable. I'm sure I can see so many great comments coming in. And I know we're going to have really good conversations over the next hour. But I wanted to just finish by each of you sharing kind of how people who are listening tonight can connect with you and your projects and your work. So Sandra, with Mindberry, I know you're going to have an exclusive conversation with the Funded Club in a moment. But how can people connect with you, and what can you offer? How can you support people who are running businesses?
So if you like, you can connect with me via LinkedIn. There is also the Mindberry page. Get in touch with us and the team, and we can offer you online coaching sessions. We can offer you online counseling. Just you don't always have to have a problem. Just check in with us, and let's talk and let's connect. I think that sometimes is the most what helps anyway.
Thank you, Sandra. So check out Mindberry and follow that. And James, what about Sanctus? What's the opportunity for people?
Connect with me on LinkedIn, please. That'd be great. I love LinkedIn. Sorry, Pip. I'm not on the dots yet. I love LinkedIn. It's great.
James, create a profile on the dots tonight, and people can connect with you there.
I'll do that.
It's a kinder place to connect.
Yeah, and I don't know. Then you'll find Sanctus website.
And in terms of Sanctus's work now, like I know you started working off with individuals, now you work with brands and businesses. Tell us, like, if people are working in organizations, what's the opportunity? How can Sanctus help them?
So our core offering is to partner with a business to support the business in supporting their employees with their mental health, basically. So we'll partner end to end, from designing a strategy all the way through to creating support. And our core support is Sanctus coaching, where we make Sanctus coaches available to people for confidential, impartial, one-on-one conversations.
Brilliant. Show us your t-shirts, they can see the brand. The brilliant thing is that I don't know if James will get angry with me sharing this, but I seem to remember reading that your first revenue stream was selling those t-shirts.
There's more where that came from, but yeah.
How'd you start a mental health business? Sell some t-shirts with the name on it. It's brilliant. And Pip, tell us about the dots and how people can get involved.
Okay, well, definitely don't message me on LinkedIn.
Silence.
It's like my yeah. I don't think I've accepted a connection on LinkedIn for a very long time. You can message me on the dots. In terms of how to support, I'll actually just pop in a link here. It's kind of like how startups can use the dots to build teams and collaborate and get helpful, supportive advice. So yeah, you can literally just get involved with that, and you can message. I always message people back. It might take me a while, but I always get back to anyone that messages me. So.
Fantastic, thanks, Pip. And I want to extract in this last minute one tip from each of you. So let's imagine, it's the middle of January. We're still a few months away from seeing the end of whatever lockdown we're in. The business is really hard. We're struggling to figure out how to pivot or to raise our money or to pay our next round of wages. So we're in a low moment. Imagine that, and it's still, it's hard to see the way out. What's the one or two things or the first thing that you would suggest doing, or the thing that someone can write on a note and stick on their wall for when the times get tough, that they can do to help pull themselves out of that hole? Sandra?
Be kind to yourself. Compassion.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in your case, what does that mean? So when you're being kind to yourself, does that mean just turning everything off and going for a walk around the lake in Sweden, or?
It's about self-care.
Okay.
It's also about self-care. It's about you worth it to check in either with Mindberry or with Sanctus. So, and also connect with the people around you. I think that is also, sometimes it helps so much, like Pip said, and also James, with the family around. Connect, it keeps you warm. It's a chicken noodle soup for your soul. Yeah,
chicken noodle soup for your soul. That's
exactly that is what we need at the moment.
Great. Be kind to yourself. That's my first post-it note. I'm sticking that up for the dark night. James, what's your top tip?
Connect with yourself, with others, the world, nature. Whatever gives you that feeling of connection. I think if I had to say one thing, and just actually talk to people, especially people you feel safe speaking to.
Great. So just leave your number in the chat here, James, and people can call you at 3 a.m. And Pip, what about yourself? What's your advice?
Definitely sleep. Walk is really good for me. Whenever I'm worried, I just walk and I put in my earphones and I'll listen to a book and I'll just walk. And I think the most important thing I built is a network of other founders that support me. So I'm in a group of 8 founders. We catch up once a month, and we share our deepest, darkest fears. And it's actually been the most important thing, I guess, in my career, because sometimes I just need people I can feel safe and say what I'm scared about, and then for them to share their journeys. And I'm not alone in that case.
No.
And so a founding group is always wonderful.
Get your founders bubble set up, even if it is on WhatsApp. Sandra, James, and Pip, it's been a real pleasure over the last hour hanging out with you. I wish it was in person so we could have a hug and hang out with all these wonderful people who've been following along as well. But thank you for being here tonight. Sandra, I know you're going to meet a bunch of the Funded Club in a minute. All power to you over the next period, and stay in touch. Thanks so much, guys. Take care.
See ya. Bye. Thanks, everyone.